All right, guys, welcome back to Reprogramming Masculinity. Today we are going to be doing part 1, I think, of what's going to have to be a series because unfortunately, compiling my entire philosophy into one singular video is going to be so long that no one's going to want to watch it. We're going to start by first explaining why most fitness science isn't actually science. And we'll follow up with why that's important afterwards. But let's just get right into it. All right. So as you can see, I typed in why most human science isn't a hard science. What AI immediately spits out for you right off the bat. Let's read right through this. Human sciences are not classified as hard science, primarily due to the differences in the nature of their subject matter and the challenges of measurement and control. So, human sciences study human behaviors, societies, cultures, phenomena that are inherently complex, dynamic, and influenced by countless variables. Unlike physical systems, human behavior cannot be isolated in controlled lab settings with the same precision as chemical reactions or physical laws. Difficulty in control and replication. In hard sciences, experiments can often be repeated under identical conditions to verify results. In human sciences, people change over time and contexts vary widely across cultures and historical periods. This makes replication difficult and limits the ability to establish universal laws. Human sciences face impossibly high standards for what counts as real knowledge. Why most? Let's type in fitness. Fitness science isn't a hard science. Exercise science is often considered a soft science rather than a hard science because it typically does not require the rigorous quantitative training found in fields like physics, chemistry, or advanced mathematics. Why is that? Limited experimental rigor. Studies in exercise science frequently face challenges such as small sample sizes, short durations, and difficulty controlling variables. Issues that undermine the reliability of findings. Okay, you guys need to understand first that science requires the ability to replicate the same findings over and over and over again. It must be repeatable. Reliance on indirect evidence. Unlike medicine, where long-term large-scale studies are common, exercise science often lacks longitudinal data on specific training outcomes, forcing practitioners to extrapolate from related research. Inconsistent standards. The field suffers from a lack of universal methodological rigor, with some studies including non-relevant populations. This skews results. While exercise science applies scientific principles to human movement and fitness, it's messy. Evolving nature and limited resources mean it often falls short of the evidentiary standards seen in hard sciences. As one expert noted, the field is still maturing, similar to medicine decades ago, and should be approached with critical thinking, not blind acceptance of single studies. Guys, look, you have to understand that the vast majority of what people are doing in the gym today are based on single studies that are soft sciences. Science requires continuous, repeatable results over and over and over again with no variance. The reason that this is a problem in human sciences is because it is unethical to do what is required to set up a study that locks people away for decades in a lab and controls for every variable. If you don't do that and you try to do a study As a scientist on living human beings, what you are going to be faced with is a lack of control over how much sleep they're getting, what they're eating outside of the laboratory, if they're experimenting with any drugs recreationally, or for the sake of getting bigger and stronger like anabolics. Right? These are variables that they cannot control for. They can't control for genetics. There's not enough sets of twins in the world to be able to conduct proper experiments. The reason that twins are really important for live human studies is because they have identical genetics. So if you're trying to test this versus this, you have a set of twins. You have two twins conducting the same experiment, and ideally you would have tens, if not hundreds, of sets of twins all conducting the same experiment. You can't do that. It's not possible. Okay? Now, there are some things about human sciences that are more hard science. A lot of that is learned post-mortem. Aside from what we're capable of learning post-mortem, because there's not as many ethics tied to a dead body as there is a living one, we don't actually truly know that much about what is the best thing to do in the gym as a living human being. You see why this is important? With that said, there is no such thing as a proven method of building muscle. We just kind of sort of understand to some degree through the hard sciences of post-mortem what muscle fibers are and what might elicit a response from them. So this goes into the beginning of my HIIT philosophy. But I needed you guys to understand first that while what I'm telling you is a theory, all fitness related to living human beings is a theory, nothing more. With that said, this video is going to be largely focused on the fact that I believe that most humans are training for the wrong type of hypertrophy. A lot of people think hypertrophy is a one-off definition, that hypertrophy is nothing more than growth of the muscle. However, that is not entirely true. We do know that there is such a thing as sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and myofibrillar hypertrophy. Unfortunately, the leading theory in living human fitness sciences is high volume, and this is largely what people listen to. This is largely what people follow, and I believe that this is wrong, largely because it does not focus on myofibrillar hypertrophy. It focuses on sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. But before we get into that, I'll break it down for you guys real quick. As you guys can see here, we've got sarcoplasmic hypertrophy versus myofibrillar hypertrophy. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy refers to an increase in the volume of sarcoplasm, the fluid and energy storing components surrounding myofibrils, resulting in greater muscle size and endurance, but not necessarily strength. And this is why we'll get into the importance as to why not having this means you aren't going to keep this. Okay, but this type of growth is associated with higher repetition ranges, moderate loads, blah, 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 shorter rest periods, common seen in bodybuilding style training. While the concept is widely used in fitness, scientific evidence suggests that both types occur simultaneously. So this is partially true, but vastly untrue. And we'll get into that. The distinction is more of a theoretical framework. Look, even AI will tell you that a lot of this stuff is just theory-based. So, as you can see here, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is largely, you know what? Let's just simplify this a little bit. Let's just do one at a time. This refers to an increase in the volume, the fluid-filled area surrounding the contractile myofibrils within a muscle fiber. So sarcoplasmic hypertrophy does not actually target the muscle fibers themselves. It targets the fluid-filled area surrounding the contractile myofibrils. This type of hypertrophy contributes to muscle size and appearance, but does not significantly increase strength. Sarcoplasm contains energy stores like glycogen, ATP, creatine phosphate, and water, which support endurance and metabolic capacity during exercise. So you have to understand, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is the pump. Okay, this is what Arnold was constantly chasing. This is what a lot of bodybuilders throughout their time, all of the legends for the most part that we can point to with the exception of Dorian Yates and Menser, all of these guys focused heavily on sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. And this is focused not on the myofibrils within a muscle fiber. It is focusing on the fluid-filled area surrounding the myofibrils. So what a lot of people do, especially today, because stupid theories like reps and reserve have kind of sort of taken a leading stance in theory on this stuff, that people are performing 6, 7, 8 reps of a single body part. And what is happening for the fluid-filled area around the myofibrils to increase significantly enough to take in more glycogen, more ATP, more creatine, and more water, there has to be inflammation. Now, just so you guys see, yeah, look, yes, inflammation is part of the muscle pump. The muscle pump, characterized by a temporary feeling of fullness, tightness, and swelling in the working muscles, is caused by cellular swelling and local inflammation due to increased blood flow and fluid buildup in the muscle tissue. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. See what I'm saying? It's just inflammation. And what happens to inflammation? Inflammation is not permanent. It's temporary. Okay, so let's move on to... Actually, before we move on, I just wanted to show you guys. So, for the sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, the causes of high rep, moderate weight, with short rest periods. Okay? This is what causes sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. As you can see, this is what most people are doing. Limitations does not improve strength or long-term muscle mass directly. You know what? Here's what I'm going to zoom in on that so you can see that up close. Limitations does not improve strength or long-term muscle mass directly. Right there in your face, guys. You are not going to gain long-term muscle mass directly from high-volume stuff. You're just not. And like, for just a second, let's just kind of think of this logically, right? How many guys go into the gym year after year after year, damn near every single day, and every single one of them will tell you, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've gained maybe 5 to 10 pounds over the last, 10 years. And, these people will cope. And look, there's nothing against anyone who's been duped by this, okay? That there's, at least I believe that there is a conspiracy to this, because there's a large amount of money to be made in people not reaching their goals, man. The supplement industry makes a ton of money off of people coping, thinking, well, crap, I just must not have the genetics of these elite bodybuilders, which is why I can't get big like them. But maybe if I buy some creatine, and I buy some of this, and I buy some of that, and I buy some of that, and then I buy some of this, and then I buy this type of leucine, and then I buy this, they start hitting your wallet because of the ineffectiveness of the training methods that they're leading with in theory. So we see it every day, guys. We see it every day. We see people who struggle and struggle and struggle year after year after year and don't gain anything. And then they'll find some reason to cope over it. Like, well, maybe it's just my genetics, or maybe it's just because I can't dedicate as much time as these guys. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And the problem is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, guys. You cannot maintain it long term. You can't. Even less so as a natural lifter. If you're not taking anabolic steroids, guys, please understand. Steroids not only help with recovery, but they actually demand more nitrogen retention. It demands more fluid retention. It demands all of basically more sarcoplasmic growth. And of course, some of that has to do with estrogen aromatization from the steroids they're taking. Having an increase in estrogen helps with sarcoplasmic growth. Do you want more estrogen? No! Even the bodybuilders, they don't seem to understand that they're taking enough drugs to kill most animals for the sake of maintaining something that they're not going to be able to keep the moment they quit. And even that we can logically look at and see that that is a repeatable pattern of these guys who do high volume training their whole career. You know, the moment they retire and quit and stop working out as hard, man, they go super flat. They lose everything. If you want to build permanent muscle that sticks around, even if you have an off week, you're still gonna keep your muscle. And the reason for that, you guys have to understand, myofibrillar hypertrophy reacts similarly to the same mechanism of what it happens when you break a bone or scar tissue forms, right? When you break a bone, it won't just mend the bone back. It'll create a new layer of bone around it as an adaptation, so that spot is harder to break, right? It's not exactly the same mechanism, but the same process, right? High enough stress was induced to create new tissue. And that's ultimately what myofibrillar hypertrophy is. Let me pull it back up for you guys. Myofibrillar hypertrophy. So guys, this is what I focus on, and this is what I'm going to teach you guys how to focus on here. Okay, so here we go. Myofibrillar hypertrophy refers to the increase in size and density of the contractile proteins, the actin and the myosin. That's what makes up a muscle fiber. Within muscle fibers, specifically the myofibrils, responsible for muscle contraction. Okay, this form of hypertrophy is directly linked to increase muscle strength, power, and functional performance, making it the primary driver of strength gains in powerlifters, weightlifters, and athletes requiring explosive force. Unlike sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which increases non-contractile components like glycogen, water, and enzymes, myofibrillar hypertrophy enhances the actual structural capacity of muscle fibers to generate force. The primary causes here: heavy resistance training with low repetition. Well, forget the low repetitions. We're gonna dispel that eventually too. Our desire as humans to numerically measure everything, but we'll get into that. Long rest periods. Okay, you have no choice but to do this in between sets. I promise you, your lungs and heart will not allow for you to do less than this. And compound movements. Okay, training focus, progressive overload. Nah, I won't go this far. This, I say, is incorrect. The primary driver of heavy resistance training is intensity, obviously. Okay, recovery, critical for repair and growth, requires 7 to 9 hours of sleep and 48 hours of rest between training the same muscle group. Okay, don't do this, please. It's not enough recovery, not enough time to overcompensate. High nutrition, high protein intake. Myofibular hypertrophy is the foundation of functional strength in dense, powerful muscles. Prioritize heavy lifting, adequate recovery, and nutrition to maximize it. Don't prioritize heavy lifting. Okay, so look, if I type in myofibular hypertrophy is caused by intense training, that's what it pulls up. Myofibular hypertrophy is primarily caused by high-intensity resistance training, specifically lifting heavy weights at maximal intensity with low repetitions. Again, forget the low and forget that the weight part of this and the low repetitions. Anything that's talking about reps and sets and weight, forget about it. Just forget it. This type of training creates significant mechanical stress and micro tears in muscle fibers, prompting the body to repair and strengthen the microfibrils, the contractile tissues within the muscle cells, leading to an increased muscle density, strength, and power. Training at 85 to 95%, again, both not going to do this. We're going to train at 100% more of one repetition maximum, again, nonsense, with longer rest periods between sets is optimal for stimulating this adaptation. While intensity is key, the combination of heavy loads and low reps ensures maximal recruitment of high threshold motor units, driving myofibular growth. You have to understand that while they're not entirely separate, right? You can train your entire life for sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and gain a tiny little bit of myofibular hypertrophy, okay? Likewise, you can train for intensity and still get a pump, still get sarcoplasmic growth, temporary sarcoplasmic growth. But you have to understand that if you train your entire life for sarcoplasmic growth with high volume, multiple sets, low intensity, you are only going to get so far. To give you an example, let's say you have the goal of wanting to be able to run, a 100-meter dash. Let's say you want to be really good at sprinting 100 meters. But the way that you prepare for that is by jogging 5 miles a day, and a light jog at that. Do you actually legitimately think that you are going to achieve your goal of intensely sprinting 100 meters by jogging 5 miles a day? Of course not. That's nonsense. That's stupid training. You're not gonna reach your goals doing that. It's exactly the same. If your goal is to get bigger and stronger and have a permanent size to you that is impressive everywhere you go, you train for intensity. You train for myofibular hypertrophy. And guys, this is far more effective and efficient than sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Why? Because sarcoplasmic hypertrophy requires that you spend so much damn time on one single muscle group that you have no choice but to split your body parts up into several days. And the reason that's inefficient is because, like, who truthfully, who wants to live in the gym? I know some people do. Some people become incredibly addicted to it. They become addicted to the structure of being in there every single day. And while I don't disagree with the intense desire to be structured in your life, you need to find structure elsewhere. Because you're structuring your life around a form of training that ultimately isn't going to get you what you want. Okay, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy truly is a tool. It is a tool to be used if you're like an IG model and you're getting ready for a photo shoot, okay, it's a tool for competitors right before they step out on stage, and they just want what is already big to look even bigger. But it is not an efficient form of training for long-term growth that you can have as an old man. If you want that, you're gonna have to suck it up, discipline your mind, and push your body to limits that you, up until this point, have been avoiding. The way that you do that is through intensity. The way that you do that is by measuring what you are doing after failure. Now, I know a lot of people. There's even some high intensity influencers out there right now, and it's not to disparage them in any way, shape, or form. I actually respect that they're pushing this message too. But even a lot of them will stop at contractile failure, the failure of the contraction, and I don't entirely think that's accurate. I think our muscles' inability to contract is really just evident of all of the lower threshold units finally giving out and being done with performing something of such high intensity. They get exhausted first, and therefore the contraction fails first because the contraction is the weakest. It's the weakest part of the movement. Isometric hold is stronger still, and the negative is even stronger than the isometric and the concentric. A lot of this has to do with the way that muscle fibers lay over top of each other. And there's a lot that goes into it. You need to seriously question, and please, by all means, look into the two yourself and understand that we have all been duped into following the methods of men taking way too much drugs. So come back next time, but I'm going to explain to you why I think that reps and sets are actually kind of stupid, and why I think they limit us and hold us back in our mind. So prepare for that. Thanks for coming by. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment for the algorithm. Appreciate you.